What? They're different ways.
Do we need to wait on Rudy? Are we?
No,
Oh, I thought you said,
I am Rudy tonight. I
Oh.
sincerely apologize.
I thought you meant
your
that
hair ain't-
you were waiting on Rudy.
I'm getting my hair cut in November.
You can even get cheaper.
Okay. I'll call to order the Apache Junction Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. It's Tuesday, July 23rd, 2019. It is now about 7:02 p.m. And if everyone would join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Larry.
Commissioner Hanchey,
Present.
Vice Chair Heck,
Present.
Commissioner Howard,
Here.
Commissioner Kreidler,
Here.
Commissioner McGraw,
Here.
Commissioner Nesser, Chair Nesser,
Present.
Commissioner Uli.
Here.
All present, you have a quorum, Madam Chair.
Okay, we'll move on to the first item, approval of the agenda, consideration for approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission accept the agenda as presented.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Commissioner Hanchey,
Yes.
Vice Chair Heck,
Yes?
Commissioner Howard,
Yes.
Commissioner Kreidler,
Yes.
Commissioner McGraw,
Yes.
Chair Nesser.
Yes. We'll move on to the minutes, which is consideration and approval of the regular meeting minutes of July 9th, 2019. Do I have a motion?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission approve the minutes from the July 9th, 2019 regular meeting.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Chair Nesser,
Yes.
Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Commissioner Hanchey,
Yes.
Vice Chair Heck,
Yes?
Commissioner Howard,
Yes.
Commissioner Kreidler,
Once again, accuracy is not reflected, vote no.
Commissioner McGraw.
Yes.
Approved, Madam Chair.
Okay, we'll move on to the public hearings. The first public hearing is a presentation, discussion, and consideration of case PZ-4-19, a proposed rezoning of approximately 4.14 acres from B2 PD to new B2 PD to facilitate a Dutch Brothers coffee shop and future commercial development. Hi.
Good evening, Commission. For the record, my name is Sidney Rice, planner here on staff. Like you said, tonight I will be giving a presentation on Dutch Brothers Coffee, PZ-419. The proposed project is located on the northeast corner of Apache Trail and Thunderbird Drive. Coal Valley Partners has recently purchased the 4 parcels outlined in red in front of you. In about 2007, the subject properties went through a planned development. Because of the new plans that we have tonight, we are processing a rezone for a new plan development, as noted in the agenda. The request from the applicant is the rezoning of those 4.14 acres in order to facilitate on phase 1 a Dutch Brothers Coffee and future development on the remainder of the parcels. So Dutch Brothers will be located directly on that corner there. The applicant is proposing entrances on Apache Trail and Thunderbird Drive. Patrons could access the site either one of those drives and use the facility using the double drive-through or park and walk up to the window. Here we have kind of a close-up without the context of the site. It's the landscape plan. And here we have the proposed elevations. So the applicant is proposing stone finishes at the bottom of the base of the building, stucco and fiber cement paneling shown in the gray tower there, as well as awnings on all 4 sides. The applicant held a meeting at the MGC neighborhood meeting on May 22nd of this year. A total of 3 people attended. Staff also sent out notices in order to advertised the request. Staff has not received any input from the public. Staff is recommending approval of this case, PZ 419, subject to the standard conditions of approval found in the staff report. That's the conclusion of my presentation. The applicant is also here and would like to give an overview of the project as well.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Sydney?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Commissioner Kreidler?
I missed the difference between the old zoning and the new zoning. What is the difference?
Absolutely.
And why are we doing that?
Commissioner Kreidler, in 2007, the PD was very specific to a set of plans and layout. So now the applicant is changing that layout, and that is why we're going through a new plan development. So they were noting very specific conditions of approval, noted very specific architecture, and the layout to the site.
Okay, good. And I have one other on the, as far as the aerial that's being shown right now. That one small box in what, on the next page would be.
On this one here?
Yeah, that's not reflected on the next page for that other aerial photo.
Here.
Right. And what is that box? And I noticed the lot line goes right down in between what used to be Promac Mining and what the liquor store was. I don't remember if those buildings are separated or not, or if it's one contiguous building.
Commissioner Kreidler, I think they are connected, but a part of the conditions of approval will be the demolishing of that building there. So-
The whole thing then?
Correct.
Okay.
So part of phase one will demolish all the buildings on site.
Okay, I didn't see that, so thank you for answering my questions.
Yes, sir, absolutely.
So, yeah, that,
Anybody else?
Yes, I do have a question.
Shirley?
You indicated that all of the buildings on those Lot B and C, those are going to be demolished?
Commissioner Uli, that is correct.
Now, is that, when is that, is all of this site is to be graded and finished and all in one fell swoop? Then Dutch Brothers is coming in, putting in their phases of buildings, and then the other buildings would be phased in after these buildings by Dutch Brothers are going to be built? Is that what I'm getting from this?
Commissioner Uli, the project will be done in phases. Phase one will be Dutch Brothers, and the improvements to the site will be done at the time of construction. Phase two and phase three will be done at the time of the project proposal and approval.
But now all the piping and all the street improvements and everything else will be done during phase one?
Phase one specific to the Dutch Brothers site. Everything else will be done with subsequent projects going forward. But the demolition of the buildings will be done at once.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Madam
Yes.
Chair. Sydney, so I just want to just clarify Commissioner Kreidler's comment. So that small parcel there, down there at the,
This one here.
at the east end, yeah, so that piece of that building to the east of that, that is also, even though that's not a part of this 4.14 acres, that will also be demolished. That's already been agreed to?
Commissioner Heck, only the buildings that are within the red area are going to be demolished. So everything to the east of this red line here will stay.
So that's
So
a
there's-
separate building?
So there's going to be, so there's going to, yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out. I didn't think there was any I mean, I know there's a space to the first choice glass, but I didn't think there was any space there that one section's going to be, that's going to be left standing all by itself?
Commissioner Heck, that is correct. So there's an interior wall, and that will now be their exterior wall.
Right.
Oof,
Okay.
well, that ought to be interesting.
Well, whoever the owner is, if that's what he wants.
Good luck. Good luck
It'll
with
be
that.
safe, right, to leave it
Commissioner
standing
Nestor,
the
correct.
way it is?
That's right.
I mean, it looks little, but that could be, what's the approximate size of that building? Probably 20 by 50 or?
Yeah.
60?
Commission, it's my understanding that at the time that the applicant tried to purchase the properties, they tried to purchase the whole swath, but the properties to the east didn't want to sell.
Okay,
So unfortunately.
Well,
you can stand there.
yeah,
It is what it is.
yeah.
It is what it is.
Oof, okay.
Anybody else? Nothing? Okay, thank you. If the developer would like to come and speak with us, please?
Hello, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Ryan Ramey. I'm here representing Coal Valley Partners. We are the developer. I'd like to start out by thanking you guys for having me tonight. I'm excited to be here to discuss this project.
You can move that speaker around if you don't want to have to lean or anything.
Thank you. This is okay.
We're figuring it out right
You want the full screen
Towards
view?
the bottom of there.
There you go.
There we go. All right, so I'll keep this pretty quick. I'll do an introduction of the company, site overview, go over the development, then talk a little bit about Dutch Bros. So Coal Valley Partners is a small-scale retail developer based in Portland, Oregon. We specialize in retail development and shopping center operations. We pride ourselves on hands-on project management and being a good neighbor. We currently own 4 shopping centers in the Phoenix metro area and have delivered 3 Dutch Bros coffee shops in Arizona. This will be our 4th. Little overview of the development. Sydney already went over this. The parcels with a star denote what we purchased a few months ago. One comment about the demolition for the small building there at 940. They're actually 2 separate buildings. They're built right against each other. You would only be able to tell if you went and stood behind them. So they are 2 independent structures that the buildings on 900 and 936 will remain. The buildings on 940 will be demolished in early August. As Sydney said, this is a multi-phase development. I had a site plan made in color there so you can kind of see what we're working on in phase 1. It'll include the driveway off of Apache Trail and a driveway off of North Thunderbird Drive, as well as street improvements on the southwest corner of Apache Trail up Thunderbird through the drive aisle there. We have a fully executed lease from Dutch Bros and are nearing submission for building permits. We also have Superstition Fire and Apache Junction Police Department training there. Sorry for the misspelling. I apologize. That's an egregious mistake. But they are currently in there. The AJPD SWAT team will actually be in the Cobb's building tomorrow morning, running some training operations there. As I previously stated, we have a demo permit for all existing buildings on the parcels that we own, and that demo is scheduled for August 5th. We have a group of local commercial real estate brokers who specialize in retail marketing. The other 2 pads, ideally we'd like some sort of restaurant use on the front pad, and in the back, a larger box user, all retail oriented. A little bit about Dutch Bros. The picture here, which Sydney already showed, is the actual building elevation that we've submitted to the city. Like he said, it's made of material. The materials are natural stone, fiber cement, and stucco. When we were planning the site, we wanted to make sure that we had adequate stacking, which I think we accomplished. I think we're at 28 cars on site with adequate parking to the west of the building. We'll also have a pathway from the sidewalk that will encourage walk-up customers, as well as picnic tables bolted to the patio area to allow for people to kind of hang out and enjoy their drinks after they purchase them. We've worked with the city to use natural, native landscaping along Thunderbird and West Apache Trail. We'll do the same with the other users on the other pads as those come to fruition. Kind of an overview of the schedule here. We're targeting demo first week of August on August 5th. Construction commencement late August, early July, with the store opening in Q1 2020. And the whole time we're building Dutch Bros, we'll also be marketing to other retail users for the other two sites. This photo that's shown here is the Dutch Bros that we built in Tucson. Kind of similar materials were used for this one as they're going to be used here in town. Dutch Bros was founded in 1992 in Grants Pass. They're still headquartered there today. They specialize in coffee, blended drinks, and energy drinks. They don't serve, they don't cook or prepare food. They serve prepackaged scones and kind of breakfast items, but no food prep. It's all drinks. The employees take orders via iPads through the drive-through window or the walk-up window. When the drive-through queue gets full, they have employees out taking orders in the drive-through, and the transaction takes place in the drive-through queue, and by the time they get up to the drive-through window, the drink's ready, and it's kind of a handoff. Since the transaction's already taken place, that kind of allows them to cycle customers through without causing traffic or impeding into the road. They are a community-focused retailer who really takes a lot of care in giving back. A couple examples that promotions they do would be they work with local high school teams or community groups to do give backs where a portion of the sales will be donated to the group or a cause of their choosing. Our lease, it was signed by Dutch Bros Corporate, and they'll have an operator who's previously run stores and has been trained to come out here and operate the store, and they're very excited to be here in AJ. Thank you. Do you got any questions?
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is is there no tables inside? Tables and chairs?
There's no interior seating.
Okay. And then there's the people, no speakers, so that means there's gonna be somebody standing out, rain or shine, in this heat all the time the business is open?
So they have employees in the shop, in the drive-through, in the interior of the store taking orders. They do send people out when it does get crowded.
Oh, okay.
It's not always. Given that it's a company founded in Oregon, they do have a great rain operations plan. Every employee gets a Dutch Bros branded rain jacket. And their iPads that they take orders with have cases, waterproof cases, to protect those as well. Typically, orders are taken from inside the store, but in an effort to decrease traffic and get people through quickly, they do sometimes send people out.
And the question I want to ask, if I can word it correctly, is how do you, are you consciously planning the placement of this facility so that you won't end up with the problem you just had down in Phoenix a month or so ago, that the brand-new Dutch Brothers there has to be closed because they had so much traffic, they were clear out on the road and backed up on the road so far, it was blocking Phoenix traffic?
I did hear about that. We did not do that store. we probably would have done it differently. Dutch Bros is a client of ours. I'm not an actual Dutch Bros employee. Kind of going back to the site here. Oh, yeah.
Madam Chair Nesser, throughout the planning of the project, staff was aware of that project. It was all over the news. It's been a big problem. In fact, it's a big problem for Dutch Brothers. So during the plan review, we were discussing with the applicant the necessity and the importance of the double lane and the increased stacking. And the applicant has provided more than appropriate stacking there. I think he mentioned about 28 cars or so. So from a staff perspective, that's not a concern at this time.
Okay. I wasn't aware of exactly the size and the length of the roadway or anything at that other facility, but like you said, it was all over the news about the traffic was just, they had such popular, when they opened it up,
That's
that the traffic was literally out onto the roadway, the major roadway.
Yeah. Madam Chair, my understanding of that project was that they met zoning ordinance stacking minimums, and in this case, they are exceeding that
Yeah.
minimum here. So,
Okay,
Madam Chair,
yes.
Dutch Brothers is not buying or leasing this entire for some acres, right? That's you guys doing that, and then they're taking a section of this?
Right, so we own all of the land. They signed a lease, a build-to-suit lease, so we're building the building for them, and we also will be the landlord.
Follow-up, the type of businesses that they normally attract, do you have any idea what those are?
In terms of neighbors,
In terms of these two empty lots that are gonna be looking at new retail space, do we know, or do you know, what type of retail that they normally attract around? I'm sure marketing has something to do with it, around a Dutch Brothers?
they attract other quick service restaurants, and other big box retailers such as a Pet Club, Popeye's Chicken kind of falls in that category. They also attract automotive uses, but we are not pursuing those as we worked with the city, with the planning commission.
That's true. That's true.
Commissioner McGraw, we were pretty conscious about who were going to be our new neighbors, you know, and as noted in your staff report, let me open that. I think condition number 8 notes kind of uses that we are excluding from the future development. So we want attractive uses along that Apache Trail corridor.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yes.
Madam Chair, oh.
Yes. Shirley?
Now, you're going to be using local real estate people to do the marketing of your, of the other buildings here, once they are built? Or going to be built to suit?
I'm not sure if we will build them or if they will build them. We'll own the land, but some retailers prefer building things themselves. Others, like Dutch Bros, want someone like us to step in and build it for them. But ultimately, the users on the other two pads will be signing leases with us.
Can I put in a plug right now for what I would like to see there?
Of course.
I would like to see a nice ice cream bistro.
See what I can do. The brokerage team that's working on it, their signs are currently posted in front of the parcels, and they are actively marketing to restaurant and high-end retail users.
Thank you.
Shirley, remember, we don't want too much traffic all at the same place.
We want some.
Yeah. Willie, anybody?
Yeah,
Peter?
Madam Chair. Yeah, so Ryan, just a quick question on the Dutch Brothers Coffee Store. Do you know, is that will remain under the ownership and operational status of the company? It won't be a franchise?
It is not a franchise.
Okay.
It's a corporate store
Okay.
that will be run by someone who has gone through a very rigorous management program that Dutch Bros operates.
Okay.
There's a pretty short list of operators that they feel are qualified, and they only send the best of the best from internally.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions? Nobody? Okay, Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll open this up to the public. Is there anybody in the public who would like to speak on this item? Yes, it's open to the public. You have 3 minutes? 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Won't need, my name
Give
is
you-
Michael Coria.
And we need your address also, please.
I'm sorry?
Your address also.
1129 West 2nd Avenue, 85120. I've been in Apache Junction approximately since 1985 May as an employee and a homeowner. When I hear about Dutch Brothers coming in, the biggest thing I see is traffic. I need traffic. It helps my business. Right now, I've seen the traffic on Apache Trail die. So I would love to see traffic improved on Apache Trail. If we back up traffic on Apache Trail, I would love that. Be honest with you. It's good for business. But other than that, I think I've looked at Copeland Enterprises. They look very well on paper. Their websites, what they've done in Tucson, out in McDowell Road, they have some good stuff. So from what I've seen, I like it. But most of all, I like it because it's going to bring traffic. Traffic means more people for businesses, more tax dollars for the city. So that's all I need to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else in the public wish to comment? Hearing none, I'll close the public portion and open this up for discussion. No one? Okay. If there's no further discussion, I will call for a motion.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend to the Apache Junction City Council the approval of Plan Development Rezoning Case PZ-4-19, a request by Coal Valley Partners to rezone 4.14 acres for a Dutch Brothers Coffee Shop and future commercial development, represented by Ryan Ramey of Coal Valley Partners, located at the northeast corner of Apache Trail and Thunderbird Drive, from B-2 PD, that's Old West Commercial Plan Development, to a new P-2 PD Old West Commercial Plan Development, subject to the following conditions of approval. And I would submit the 8 conditions as listed in the staff report of July 23rd, 2019.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote?
Commissioner Hanchey.
Yes.
Vice Chair Heck.
Yes?
Commissioner Howard.
Yes.
Commissioner Kreidler.
Yes.
Commissioner McGraw.
Yes.
Chair Nesser.
Yes.
Commissioner Uli.
Yes.
All in favor, Madam Chair.
Okay. And I look forward to opening and a cup of coffee.
Here, here.
Peter and his coffee.
Yeah. You can deliver one while I'm here.
We'll move on to the next item, which is presentation, discussion, and public hearing of the amendment to Apache Junction City Code, Volume 2, Chapter 1, Zoning Code, Article 1-13, Design Standards, creating Section 1-13-4, Art in Public and Private Development.
Madam Chair, you'll recall that I was here a couple weeks ago, and in your packet, you actually have 2 versions of this. So the one version had extensive red line, and I thought that was like impossible to read. So then I simply took out all the red line, and so tonight I'd like to walk through it. This would, depending on the council schedule, I think I mentioned either September 17th, council trying to get an arts commission started. 3 sections of ordinance changes needed. One is in Volume 1, Chapter 2, to establish an arts commission and the membership and how many members and their makeup. That's one ordinance the council will be working on. What comes before the commission is what other cities have done, is put the requirements for art and private development in the zoning code. Then there's another piece that the council will be looking at is, and we'll talk a little bit about tonight, but what the fee would be. So it's really when you would apply for a building permit fee, you would pay based on the type of development and the budget of the development would be the fee. So what we'll probably do, depending if there's more changes, I do have some more changes that the city attorney has recommended, so I have to go in and do some cleanup anyway, so I'll probably come back, might be on the 13th of August. So the idea would be, I think, and this might be a question for Joel. Joel, I think they would approve the text. What actually goes to the council is the ordinance and the resolution that adopts it by reference, is that correct? They don't actually vote on the ordinance, or do they?
Madam Chair, Commission members. Mr. Kurtz, that's correct. There would be, because this thing's long, it might get longer tonight, actually, depending on what you're going to do with it. And that's fine, whatever you want to do. The reason we do an ordinance to adopt something by reference is because we save publication costs. The state law still requires publication of the entire text. So to get around that, and it's completely legal under Title IX, you can publish the ordinance, and the ordinance could refer the matter saying it's a public record, and it says it's on file with the city clerk's office, and that's completely legal. And we do that all the time with other big ordinances. So to answer your question, that is correct.
So even on the top here, it says ordinance. This is really not an ordinance. This is the text of the zoning code that we're going to be going through. When the council adopts it, they will adopt an ordinance that adopts this document. Then they adopt a resolution that, as Joel said, saves them the reason or the requirement to publish all 13 pages in the paper. So I'll kind of just go through this knowing that hopefully you've had maybe some time to look at it. I'll still do somewhat of a high level. If you have specific questions, I want to do that. This particular ordinance, again, we looked at 2 or 3 cities, so it is difficult trying to take other communities, again, Oro Valley, maybe Sedona, Phoenix, some other cities that have some arts requirements, and then put this in a format that's going to go in the zoning code. So Article 113 right now are our design standards. Our design standards in Section 113-1, we adopt design standards. So that tells you how you're going to build a gas station, how you're going to build a big box store. So what we're doing is I've created a whole new subsection, if you will, for Article 13-4, and how art and public development. So there's the, excuse me, the intent section. Essentially, we're doing this because it is good for the, improve the lives of AJ, health, safety, welfare. It's a good thing. Scope and applicability, which is really kind of what does this ordinance apply to? Essentially, it's commercial development, and it's multifamily over 10 units. So earlier drafts, different communities may have a threshold as to like a square footage. So we were looking at some recent developments, and you could have, let's say, Dutch Bros, and they might be exempt because they are under a certain square footage size. So what we did instead was say, well, it shouldn't really just apply to larger developments, but it would be proportional to the construction budget. So Dutch Bros may have to still contribute to an arts fee, if you will, so they could pay in lieu of, or they could help the city construct public art, or art that's viewable to the public. So one city actually had, I think it was a 5,000 square foot minimum commercial building. Well, you can have a building that's 3,000 square feet at, I don't know, $150 a square foot. You're looking at a sizable construction budget, $750,000, $800,000. So now we're looking at applying this to not based on square footage, but the construction budget. And the construction budget, they'll tell us what it is, but we'll verify that. So we'll go through a process where we use our standard cost for the Southwest of really. So when you get into building permits and where an ordinance would say, well, if it's between this value and this value, it's this fee if it goes over that. So A lot of times people will tell you what the construction costs are, but we'll verify what the values are. So basically, it's 1% of the construction costs, and that is for whether we were to purchase art or installation of publicly accessible art. So it could go on this site, they may decide, hey, we don't want artwork on our site, it's not big enough, or maybe the building's not big enough to come up with a dollar amount that is even possible to do art on that site. So we have some alternatives in here where they can contribute to a pot of money. Once the pot of money grows from multiple developers, then the city can work through a new commission that gets funded, or gets started to then decide where the art's gonna go. So again, there's two, basically a commercial or mixed use, we're calling it non-residential, and then for multifamily, it's anything over 10 units. So we're also looking at the same thing of 1% of the construction costs. The other piece here is that, and you see the numbers are screwed up because I gotta go through and reformat this. Part of it is that the city itself, if we say we're to build a new pool, and that pool is $3 million, then we would have 1%. Now that might include some soft costs, architect fees, et cetera, but the idea is the city itself, we get more public art when the city budgets for it. So if we're gonna, maybe the dog park's too small, but maybe the new Flatiron Park, that might be an appropriate amount. 1% of, I think there's about 800,000, so now I have to do math. That would be, I think that's about $8,000? $8,000. So if we were to do Flatiron Park today, the city itself would contribute $8,000 to public art. You could do it on that site, or it could go into the fund, if you will. So this says, well, developers, we want you to do it, but yes, the city's gonna put its money where its mouth is as well. So for public, so I'm calling it public construction. So not road projects, not resurfacing type projects, but typically things that are in our capital improvement program. And then there's always this issue of, should it apply to, if someone comes in and there was another section we took out, you'll see, on if someone, like we had with the old Fry's. Now, instead of the Fry's there's 3 new stores. We were gonna include facade improvements, and we just kind of dropped that. So it's like, if you're gonna renovate a building more than 50% of the square footage, then you're gonna contribute. But it just seemed, as properties change hands, we could have someone come in for a facade improvement and add Ross and Goodwill and whatever the other third one is. Then 5 years later, they change it again, and now we're collecting more fees. So it's really if it's changing the building itself.
Larry, I have a question for you.
Yep.
I'll be straight up front and say I haven't read all of this yet. I looked through it.
You got time, that's okay.
But I have not read it all.
I'm reading.
A business.
Joel has read it several times, I
Yeah.
gotta tell you, so.
Well, we know that Joel doesn't have a life, and he takes this stuff home at night to have something to read.
I want you to know, see this here, it says round 4 on top, so.
But my question
We're
is
getting great help.
this, about businesses. A business is a business, so we're saying to businesses, new businesses, that you're going to be basically paying 1% of your construction cost to either provide art or pay it into a pool for art.
Yes.
But housing, developers who are building houses, that's a business. Are they not going to have to put up 1% of their construction cost to go into this public fund?
Right now, it's not in here. The other ordinances that are out there don't say a developer like Lennar would come in, and so they're gonna do 174 lots, 178 lots, whatever the number is. They are doing, I think you saw, a kind of a nice entry feature. It's not in here. I guess
but
that's
my
a policy decision. Do you want it to apply to like residential subdividers that on the exterior, in addition to landscaping and everything they do in the entry feature and all that, do you want to add that? That's something that you can recommend to the council. Council may decide, yeah, great idea, we're gonna see a lot of new development, and a lot of it's gonna be single-family subdivisions south of the 60, so do we want them to have art that's viewable to the public as part of those subdivisions? Or do you think, would they just do it because they want to attract folks to live in their communities.
No, my question actually is more of, not so much of them putting so much money into providing art where they're building, but because they are a business, why are they excluded from having to provide 1% of their construction cost into an art pool? I mean, why does this business have to give you, the city, 1%?
That's a legitimate question.
But this developer, Kaufman Homes, he's gonna build 200 homes, he's developing, why does he not have to pay 1% to the city into a fund? I mean,
That's
is there,
great.
is there any specific reason?
You can if you want. You can make that recommendation if you want.
But
You
is
could
that
have a
fair?
threshold. Is it fair that they
For
should
one-
not have to?
One business doesn't have to, where all other businesses
Yeah, again,
do.
how this shakes out, you could say, well, why would multifamily developers have to do it, but not single-family developers? So that's what, it's number 3, that's multifamily over 10 units. Should it be 8 units? I mean, so all these things are subject to your input. Do I think it's fair? I originally had language in here, I don't know, amongst staff, we took it out, but you could certainly add it back in.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
Larry, your benchmarking showed these other towns.
Oro Valley does not
including or
charge that.
excluding the single-family home.
Oro Valley does not charge single-family developers, if you will.
single family or a developer? Not a developer building one
The
house?
developer of single-family homes, like a Lennar, like a,
Okay.
tract home builder, like a Kaufman, they do not, this is modeled, but I did ask that question, I think this is, but that particular community also does not.
Sedona does, Phoenix does.
I don't know off the top of my head, I don't think Sedona's ordinance does, no. And most of theirs is commercial development.
Madam Chair.
What's their reasoning behind this business doesn't have to do what all other businesses have to do?
I would have to go ask them. I don't know. I guess they're looking at commercial corridors perhaps, or, a development that is on North Main Drive, a few blocks north of, it's viewable to the public, but there won't be a lot of people that see it.
Yeah, but
Perhaps.
again, reverting to what I was saying, I'm not saying that they need to put art
Right, they could put in the
down
fund.
where they are
But they could
building,
put it in the
but it
fund.
has to go into a fund. And I'm just asking, why does these types of businesses not have to put up 1% where all other businesses do?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Larry, there was just 3 comparative cities, Oro Valley, Phoenix, and Sedona?
Yes, I think we looked briefly at Scottsdale, how theirs works, but,
Because I was
We-
looking for something in Mesa, and I found nothing.
yeah, I don't know that they do they, Sydney?
Commissioner Kreidler, I think about 10 years ago, they had a fund, and then when the recession happened, they got rid of that fund. That was my experience when I was there in Mesa at that time.
I did notice that Mesa has their own separate arts and cultural division, as opposed to having anything in their planning and zoning ordinances regarding any type of artwork or anything. So I
Yeah,
don't
where
know
it's
if,
housed, we had a consultant that looked at, when these things get off the ground, they sometimes get housed in development services. Over time, they might get moved somewhere else, but I actually asked the consultant to find another place for it, and a different department. It might still be in our zoning code, if you will, but we're a small city, we have 200 employees, we're not Mesa or Scottsdale or any city that are 250,000 people, that they would have a whole division that just devoted to the community arts or public art. So it just, starting small, this is where it made sense at this time.
okay, I would really like to see those other cities and their ordinances, because as I read this, the first thing that smacked me in the face is this is the money grab. This is overreach by the government. And just to make sure that I wasn't taking it incorrectly, I took the same information to a neighbor, and the first thing out of that in their mouth was, this is extortion. How is this beneficial to businesses? When we're charging them, whether they want it or not, for artwork, to me, that doesn't seem like it's very business-friendly. If anything, we should be offering them, say, a 1% annually for providing art. Just take 1% off their tax or something. That would incentivize bringing businesses in. To me, that's more business friendly than what this is. This, to me, it tells me we don't really want business here.
Well, again, I think if you drove down to Oro Valley and looked at some of their public art, they're a magnet for development, so I would be.
Maybe so, but that's Oro Valley.
And this
That's
is not a public hearing, I guess I would remind you, so the public will get a chance to speak at it later.
Interestingly enough, Larry, I had a conversation today with somebody about the Fry Shopping Center, and they bluntly told me that that's the ugliest shopping center they ever saw. And I'm saying, whoa, where did you get that idea? They said, well, it's chopped up, the coloring, the whole way it is portrayed. And I'm saying, well, geez, I really didn't design that shopping center, and if I did design it, I would have done it a different way. So the point is very well taken here. Art in buildings is very important to the way a city is perceived. And I think you need to get around some of these notions that businesses really don't want to pay for public art because it's in their best interest to do so.
And Larry, if it's not too much trouble, I really would like to know kind of the concept behind not having developers who are building homes not having to pay, where other developers who are building commercial businesses do. Just.
Yeah, so we'll get copies of ordinances to everybody.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
Sydney was right. Mesa did have a development fee for arts and culture. And it went to the Supreme Court because the Home Builders Association of Central Arizona didn't like it. And it was actually upheld in that particular case, a very narrow decision. This is not a development fee. This is a building permit fee. So there is a difference. So now to echo what...
Explain the difference, please.
Yes, I was about to do that.
Oh, okay.
What you just said, that does rock communities, and it upsets them. They see it as a tax take, you're right, especially when it's a development fee. Development fees are controlled under Title IX, very strict. Development fees are based on the development. You pay for basically the service, and that's the whole point of a development fee for new building, new development. The Central Arizona builders, they, starting about probably 20 years ago, went on the attack because of what they saw as a attack on business. And slowly, that thing, the statute got worse and worse for cities. It's very difficult to do development fees. This could have been done through a development fee ordinance, but it's difficult to do. This is one way of funding the arts and culture of a city. And so some cities see it as a policy decision. Mm-hmm. So what's the difference? Development fees are governed totally by Title IX, very highly regulated. And every 3 or 4 years, the legislature comes up with even stricter rules for cities and towns. At one point, it's very difficult. Some cities have even abandoned doing development fees because it's so hard. And that's when you see the roads all chewed up. They can't pay for the roads. And that's because the statute is very, very difficult to meet. So this is just one way of, this is one funding mechanism. That's what this is. As for the other cities and towns, we didn't do a full check on every city and town. That'd be that'd be difficult. It could be done, but it won't be done in time for a art commission to be formed. And if you have an art commission, you need to fund, you got to give them money in order that they can actually do art. Someone's got to pay for it. Council's decided they want an art commission. So staff was told, okay, go out and do the Chapter 2 change to create the commission. And then with the zoning, that's why this is in there. So that's some background. But it does go to your question about development fees. Absolutely.
I just had concerns, and when I brought it up to the neighbor, concerns were also there. And I looked up the extortion statute, just because it's been a few years since I last had done it. And while it doesn't quite meet that legality, I see a potential for a lawsuit to be filed civilly. So I have some concerns over this, which is why I still want to look and see these comparative cities. Last time I had to do a comparison study for the police department, I did 10 cities. I was mandated to do 10 cities. So I don't know if the things have changed in the last 10 years, but I think 3 is kind of shortchanging the information. There's probably more information out there, more codes and whatnot throughout the state or even the country that may provide a better insight, maybe some better information for a stronger code.
Well, there may not be 10 cities that do it, but so Sydney had wanted to answer a question.
Commissioner Kreidler, at my time at Queen Creek, we were beginning to establish an arts commission, and that was kind of a concern from the public, really. Was it going to be overreach? But we used an example at that time, which was QC District. It's 20 acres of new development. It was really the first big commercial development after the recession. And we encouraged the developer at that time to provide public art. And we knew that it was going to be a cost to the developer, but there was a creative approach to that. So the way that the developer mitigated those costs was a portion. They really emphasized the architecture on the front facades of the buildings, and where the rear of the buildings weren't going to be seen for the public, that was the offset for the art. And once the shopping center was open, they were really happy that they had those art features because it actually brought more tenants in and more traffic to the site. So I understand your concern, but I think I think commercial developers are now welcoming public art to the facility to improve traffic.
Yeah, I'm not against the public art. I'm just the way this is written, I have an issue with that. So if another mechanism like you're describing there can be utilized, it's basically an incentivizing. That is what I would go for, rather than having something like this where it's mandated. Either they come in and they pay this fee or that fee, or they don't come in at all, which to me is not business friendly. Or you incentivize it by saying, if you provide this art, we'll give you a 1% rebate off your taxes for 2 years, or something along those lines. You know, I like your idea, or what was done in Queen Creek, however. I mean, incentivizing the whole thing, to me, seems to be more of a win-win situation by getting businesses in here that are willing to put the artwork up, as opposed to mandating it. Businesses will balk at that. And I would rather be a business-friendly city, bringing more business in, since that is our tax base. We rely on the sales tax. So I want to see the business come in.
Cindy, would you say these businesses saw or did the calculations that would see a higher ROI because of this?
Commissioner McGraw, probably about a year after QC District opened, we met with the developer. We had a follow-up meeting. They were thinking about developing phase 2 of the project, and they did mention that they saw an unexpected increase in traffic. They did a market study prior to developing the project, and they did attribute a large portion of that to the art, because people would go there to the site, take pictures, and visit, those kind of cool features. And because they were there, they were spending those tax dollars. So.
Thank you.
Excuse me, do we got more than one example?
During my time at Phoenix, they have First Fridays, and they've established, Roosevelt Street there. And they've had an increase of bars and restaurants And they've now made it into an event where every first Friday of the month, people go down there from all parts of the valley to take a look at art. And that has been a big economic incentive for the area.
But that's more like an event put around it. I mean, are we foreseeing that, or?
Commissioner Hanshi, those public murals and art is there throughout the week. So, it's accessible and viewable all throughout the week, but they've also created, because of that, they've created an event around it.
Anyone
Those
else?
things are aesthetically pleasing to folks, so thereby they're going to come in and they're going to shop and they're going to buy.
That is correct, Commissioner Uli. I think Roosevelt Street, or it may be Road, in Phoenix has been probably the most dense developed corridor in Phoenix in probably the last 5 or 6 years.
Any more questions? Okay. So at this point, Larry,
So let's go back to the beginning. The council directed us to create this ordinance. About a year and a half ago, the council had that discussion about whether something like this would turn developers off. And lately, the council said, go forth and go create a commission, go create a mechanism to fund it, and that's what we're doing here. So at the direction, it'll be up to the council whether they decide that they think this is anti-business. So from our perspective, we'd like to get through it. We can tweak it, we can fine tune it, we can add in whether conventional subdivision home developers typically contribute. We can talk about that. We can get you copies of other communities that have such ordinances. I think they've probably, sounds like they've withstood scrutiny. So we're just proposing this based on what other cities have done. So it's not like we're the first city that's going to go create a public and private arts ordinance. So anyway, that's the way it's worded now in terms of what would contribute to the program. There's some exemptions in here. Again, 3 you can talk about because that is the residential uses. Again, if there's other constraints, 5 and 6 really relate to, again, if the city has an item in the capital improvement budget to resurface a street, it's exempt from the city putting in funds into that. We're not going to force federal, state, or counties to do it as well. And then, for example, 7 basically deals with if there is a recession, and for some reason, we don't have a capital improvements program, or we do, and the council can decide not to put public art or funds into a public art. The way this was redrafted was there was, sections A through M or N or something like that. Now there's fewer sections, so this basically is the mechanism in subsection D of how this would work. So just going through quickly, essentially if it's required, you would have a plan that's submitted. They would work with the Development Services Department. We'd figure out what the 1% would be. Then they would propose a art plan. If they decide they don't want to put art in, then they can just say, hey, we don't want to have art, and we'll contribute the fee in lieu of. So this basically is what and again, I apologize for the letters and the numbers, all that's going to get straightened out. But essentially, they have to propose a plan that the Arts Commission can look at, and that staff can review as well and work with the Arts Commission. So a maintenance plan, landscape, how it's going to be worked into the development, various perspectives. And then once we review that plan, it's all together, we would forward that plan onto the Arts Commission, and they would approve it. So that's how that section works. Then we would look at things that would or would not qualify for art. So again, it had to be designed by an artist. So an architect couldn't just say, we made the building look pretty, is that good enough? So it would have to be a feature that would be added to the facade. And then certain things that are required, like bike racks. You could have a bike rack that's not art, wouldn't count, but there are obviously bike racks that are designed to be art, and so some things would be eligible and some things are not.
An example of that is like down in Mesa, by Mesa Community College and all, they got bus stops.
Yep.
They're literally, the bus stops are literally works of art. The little
Right, in that
building.
Fiesta district, the city has decided to upgrade all those streets in Dobson and Apache Trail and things. And then define where it is, that it is original work. It has to be produced by an artist. We created a definition, I think, Tess, last
Oh,
time.
yeah, I was looking,
You were looking for a definition.
where is it?
I'll get to it here as soon as I find it. And then it tells you what you can't use the funds for, things that are, like things, art that is mass-produced, things like that. It still may be art, but it's mass-produced. We have non-eligible costs, where it's, again, this reiteration that it has to be publicly viewable. Otherwise, it's not, doesn't count if the public can't see it. If it's going to be inside a building, it would have to be in a building that's open to the public 40 hours. That's what this paragraph F does. It has to be permanent. So that's what that section does. Get into the design principles. Again, it's going to be, if there's going to be art, it has to be of quality. It has to respect or reflect the context of where it is. It has to be durable, so we're not having to spend a lot of money on maintenance. Has to be safe, et cetera, et cetera. And
Larry,
then,
can I ask a quick question?
sure.
So there's just, letter I on section, whatever.
What
two,
page?
5. It uses the term, or phrase, site visibility triangles. Can you?
All right, sorry, yes, that is,
Visibility.
basically it's at an intersection so that you can't place art where it's gonna cause an accident. So we have a thing in the zoning called code. So basically at a corner, you go back 10 feet or 20 feet in each direction, you draw a line through it. That's the site visibility triangle. So you can drive around town here where we have fences, block walls built right up to the corner and you can't see around them.
Yeah.
So in other words, the art can't create a traffic hazard. That's what that does.
Got it. Thank you.
This gets into ownership and maintenance. In essence, they would own it for 2 years. Later on in here, it talks about turning it over to the city, but we're not going to take something that hasn't been maintained or doesn't have a maintenance plan. But typically, say you had a commercial development, and we have a couple that actually have CC&Rs. We have an industrial park away on the south side that have deed restrictions, covenants and restrictions, and they might have an HOA, even if it's for an industrial park, they would have one, although industrial, that's a bad example because industrial's exempt here. But essentially, the public art installation is going to be maintained by the developer, the owners of the land, or if there is some sort of commercial development and they decide to have a homeowners association or a developers association, they would own it. Parent B basically says we're going to go inspect it. We don't give an occupancy permit, and that it has to be basically on display forever. We have to have a maintenance plan. If it gets damaged, if it gets hit by a car, you have to replace it, et cetera, et cetera. And then it talks about the replacement mechanism there. And I had to do a word replacement.
Yeah, I know.
And I had to, it used to say artwork, and so when I went in to do the word replacement for artwork, somehow it came back as,
It's over on the other page
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Before that is art.
it's all over the place, I
yeah.
apologize. Here I thought it'd be easier to read.
It is actually.
And I'm looking for the definition. There is a mechanism in here, you'll see a deferment. So if a developer wants to get started and they're not quite ready with the art, we could have an escrow account or a letter of credit or some mechanism that says, okay, we'll let you get started with your development and the art can come later, because you don't want to get it damaged during, building construction, et cetera. So there's also this combination of arts requirement. That's, again, if there is like a master developer and there's multi-phases to it, all those developers so there's a master developer, but say you have 5 projects within there, they could collectively work together to create art. That's what that is. Again, it's somewhat repetitive, but what are the eligible costs go in there? And what's not eligible. And then if they are gonna give it to the city, it has to be approved by the city council, and it has to be done in a way that's, in a form that's acceptable to the city attorney.
Larry,
Yes, sir.
you're not saying that 1% can either be contributed from the fees, or you put in 1% of the fees as far as art. There's no distinguishing between the two.
There is a table that we've added here that for smaller developments or at a certain threshold, you can, say your fee was $100,000. You can decide, well, I found this artist, he's gonna do something for 70, the 30 has to go in the fund. So that if they find art for cheaper, their obligation is 100, if you will, but they found something for 70, so the other 30 goes in the fund. If it's under a certain threshold, it's not practical to go out and do art of any significance, so the idea, if it's under a certain threshold, 100% of it would go in the fund. Again, a developer may decide after a while that they don't want to maintain this thing, but they would have to convey it in a means that we're not going to get something that immediately needs a lot of maintenance. So we might say, okay, you can convey it, but 10, 15 years from now, it might need maintenance, so we don't want to inherit something that has to be maintained down the road.
Larry, can I ask a related question?
Sure.
So you have a business, they do the development, construction, and they pay their fee, or they create some public art. After 2 years, business goes out, they go out of business, they close their doors, they just vacate the building, which is not unusual. People just disappear overnight, and now you've got this artwork sitting there. I would assume that the city will be responsible to take responsibility for it.
Yeah, I mean, all an agreement or in terms of maintenance, that still needs to be developed yet, but yeah, that's certainly possible.
You couldn't go after the business owner or anyone for that.
Right, they've complied, they built the art, now the developer is gone.
Right.
And then now the art is still there, then perhaps the city decides to step in and hopefully the building would be sold, they would essentially buy that as part of it, but maybe the city would step in and say, okay, we're gonna work with the lender or whatever it is that foreclosed and say, okay, we'll take care of it. I mean, I think that's what the Art Commission would step up and do.
As long as the art is salvageable, otherwise we can just.
Yeah, it could be moved. Again, we would have provisions in there that say, look, if this thing, hopefully that wouldn't happen, but that there would be a mechanism to convey the art if it were, or we would have like a right of first refusal, something like that, where we could step in.
Maybe I need to clarify for myself then. So obviously initially, the fees would be paid by the developer. And for these 2 years, we would be looking for the developer to pay those fees. So truthfully, the business owner, the entity that was operating a business from that location, they would really then have nothing to do with it. It's between the developer and the city.
Yeah, saying this, like we were saying here, you have a master developer, they build 3 buildings, build to suit, and the tenant leaves. The master developer is still there trying to find a new tenant for the building.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's one scenario. You'd have a scenario where the developer is the owner of the building and the business, and things went south, and then now it got foreclosed on. It stays with the property, but again, it may be an option for the city the commission to step in if it had the resources to make sure it was maintained.
Got it.
Again, this is the section on deferment about whether you can postpone it and go on a schedule. This is that table I was talking about Mike, that, which is new, added since the version you saw. So again, if the building valuation is less than $50,000, or say it was that improvement, the 50% improvement interior, in essence, all the fund would, the 1%, which wouldn't be very much, of $50,000 goes into the fund. Then if the valuation's in between, it can be any combination thereof. And then, that was my example, if, so Fry's was like $15 million. Their fee would be somewhere in that neighborhood. Again, they may decide that they want to contribute all of it, or to have public art somewhere else, like at Flatiron Park, or they can contribute some.
Is there a cap?
There, that was the, I think that's the cap, essentially $20 million building. So typically a Walmart or a Fry's, they're $13, $15 million
So the
type.
most anybody will pay would be 100,000 if they chose to.
Yeah, again, we
can't
could add
force them to
language,
get it.
greater than 20,000, you can, or 20 million, you can see that the amount goes from 1% to 1/2 of 1%.
Madam
So that sets forth.
Larry, and this chart also would be put in use for someone doing an expansion on their current building? Because I noticed in there that,
It would be over 50%. So if somebody does 49% and they do of an existing building, that's how I read that first section.
So you just expand 25% this year and
Well, it could be
25%
cumulative. It
next
depends on
year?
how you word it. You know, you could get some in December and some in January, but it would be by the permit. So depending on what you were doing. I'm still looking for your definition. This call for artists is now again, I gotta work on these sections here, but, that would be, this is really for public construction. So it's weird to kind of put it in the zoning code, but I don't know where else we put it, but if there's fees accumulated, and the city now, say the city has 100,000 that they've collected from various developers, the city would do a call for artists, would go through this public process of picking an artist and then knowing the space, and then going through a public process about what would be the appropriate art for that space.
And that's a separate commission?
The commission is this one that we've talked about, gets created under the city code in chapter 2 in the
Not
first.
planning and zoning?
no,
All right, that's fine.
do you want it?
The pack.
Do you want it?
I don't
This
think
talks about the administration, essentially, it's the finance department in ours, that's that section. I'm looking for, I know we had a definition of artist
Madam
in
Chair.
here.
The definition you're looking for is section E, under design and location
What
requirements.
page?
It'd be number 4 in our packet.
Oh, page 4?
Yes,
Where at now?
it's the underlined portion.
Oh, there it is,
E.
right here. Public art shall be designed by an artist.
Under
I
that
kind
one.
of skipped over this. If a design team is employed, at least one member has to be an artist. An artist shall mean any professional practitioner in the arts, generally recognized by critics and peers as a professional in the field, as evidenced by his or her education, experience, and artwork production. An artist may work with architects, landscape architects, etc. This is evidenced by a portfolio, a resume, which demonstrates projects previously commissioned, completed, and paid for specifically for public art. So I think that gets back to if you've painted art in your bathroom, whether you're an artist or not. So we had some educational requirements in there. We kind of went back and forth. This definition is what the consultant we had in their report recommended this language, so I plugged this language in.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Larry, is there anything in here about temporary art? You know, sometimes these artists will create this enormous whatever on top of something or in the middle of the
No.
whatever,
Yeah.
and that costs a lot of money. Is there a thing in here about temporary art? Is there an avenue towards that? If somebody wanted to use Apache Junction and envelop the whole thing in, I don't know, sheets or whatever.
Pink, the
Yeah.
pink sheet, yeah.
Sure, pink
Sure.
sheets.
Yeah. The
The,
artist that did that in New York or
I
someplace.
guess my question is there a clause for temporary art?
there's nothing in here if someone, this really, I'm not saying that couldn't be done, there's nothing in here, and maybe that's in the guidelines of the commission that if somebody does a temporary art installation to celebrate the centennial of the community or something like that. And they could put it in, but it's not gonna be funded out of this fund,
Okay.
yeah.
Madam
But
Chair.
that certainly wouldn't be prohibited.
Larry, I think that might be a good idea to put something in there regarding that, because I remember, oh geez, probably 30 years ago, when they had some artwork along I-5, the Grapevine in California. Some crazy artist put big, huge umbrellas on concrete pedestals. Those concrete pedestals are still there. So it might be a good idea to have something like that. I hadn't even thought about that until you said something, but just to touch on it. Because I know I wouldn't want to have concrete pedestals that are like, I don't know, 20 by 20 or something like that, sitting around town being unused for 30-some-odd years.
Or torn pink sheets stuck in the trees.
Yeah,
Or torn pink
toilet
pink
paper.
sheets.
Wouldn't that be more or less, it'd have to be approved anyway, because.
By the commission?
Yeah, well, by whom?
Yeah, if it's on private property, there's not a lot we could do, but something along the center of Apache Trail, I think the commission would be involved in
Anything
that.
that deals with this is gonna have to be approved. So if they were gonna put an artwork in that had giant concrete stuff, we'd have to, the body would have to approve it ahead of time anyway.
This is really set up for permanent art installations. That's how this ordinance is really,
But this could, you
drafted.
could stick something in there under, the maintenance of public art, you know, if they come in with something, it could just strictly
Yeah, if somebody-
say that they have to take out anything
already in
temporary right back with them when they leave.
Yeah, that'd fall under the maintenance, and that's in here.
Yeah,
If he throws a temporary clause into this.
yeah,
Yeah.
It wouldn't take more than probably a couple of sentences.
right, just say,
but
because it
just so
would
it's
fall under,
touched on.
so if they come
that-
in with it,
that's really what the art that we have, that's the Hopi,
the Kachina,
Kachina, that was the intent. This
Yeah.
person decided to donate their time, their art. The city could auction it off. The proceeds could go into this fund. We didn't have one at the time, we still don't, but someone else could come in, and that may spur others to do
Yeah.
temporary art installations, and the city could have an auction and then sell the art and then use the art, or the proceeds in the fund. I think that's it. It has been,
Madam Chair.
difficult, interesting to try to put this ordinance together, just to be
I think
honest
you
with
guys
you.
have done a hell of a job.
yeah, really.
It's still got a ways to go, I know that.
Peter has a question
One more comment
for
or
you.
question. So from the last time when we first ran through this, I would resubmit my question or my suggestion, I guess, that due to the nature of our society nowadays and the proclivity to find offense at virtually any and everything, I can only imagine that there could be someone that would come along and find that a particular piece of artwork was offensive to them, to a group, to whomever. And that there probably we have to have some method in place to be able to, decide that, whether the commission has to decide that. I mean, I guess, the city could wind up getting involved if the individual was motivated enough, thinking they're so offended that they can't work anymore because they're so devastated by this piece of artwork. Is there something that this
Well, that
can be
wouldn't
set up?
necessarily have to be here under, planning and development, would it? Wouldn't that be more under the?
Well, in the
the
call
us-
for artists section, there's an intent there, and same thing here, response to context. So we have this roundabout out here now. There are other communities in Arizona that have placed art in their roundabouts, so there's obviously an interest here. The city, that may be the first project we do, but if it's done through this call for artists process, then certainly the way this is currently worded is that there is a public involvement process. There's gonna be somebody that doesn't like pink sheets blowing in the wind. And that may not be what happens out there, but is that offensive? Is it just not appropriate to the context? So that's part of that, and then I believe, let me skip down here, there is an intent to do that, we could certainly, section K is what it is here. There are guidelines, again, by the commission that hopefully would deal with that. But, yeah, that's in the eye of the beholder. There may be someone, no matter what you do, they're gonna find offensive, but,
Oh, yeah, yeah. I guess I'm just thinking to make sure the city's protected from someone that's out to just try and, you know.
I find that offensive
Roll.
because
I mean,
blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, nowadays, it's just about anything can be offensive and.
and again, what has not been worked out yet, which I think is still a policy decision, is who makes the final decision on this art? Is it gonna be this commission, or are they gonna, the Public Arts Commission, or is it gonna be like this commission, other than conditional use permits, you make a recommendation to the council? So you could, that still is to be fleshed out in that chapter 2 section, where the council can decide that the commission, we'll see how it works, let them have the final decision, hopefully they'll make the right decision. Another possibility is for the council would have to sign off on all the art. That does put it back in a public process, so that, again, the council will decide how they want chapter 2 to operate. But certainly, I think the intent here on that one section was, you know,
Okay,
that
all right.
offensive art is not. Okay,
Is that it, folks?
anything for tonight? I guess we'll go back and we'll get you a couple copies of this ordinance, and we'll explore rationale for not requiring conventional subdivision developers to do.
Okay.
And the
Okay.
rationale for temporary art.
And I have an asterisk next to that one, temporary installations. Okay, so that's all I have. There's no action at this time, Madam Chair.
Yep.
We have a riveting presentation coming up next from our
Madam Chair,
new intern.
is this under public hearing?
This is new business?
No, the,
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right, you're correct. There is a public hearing on this ordinance. You're correct, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah. Well, okay. We're not voting or
Thank
anything,
you
but
for
it is
catching
a
that.
public hearing.
no, we're not
It's
voting. but it is
listed under
public hearing.
public. So, does the public, is there anyone in the public who would like to make a comment? Come down and give us your name and address, please.
Madam Chairman, Braden Biggs, 2492 West Cactus Run, Apache Junction, Arizona. First off, I want to just point out the fact that I am for an arts commission or public art being brought to Apache Junction. I think that that's a wonderful service. As a member of the Focal Point Tourism Group, this has been a large point of topic, and I'm excited to see that. I do agree, and I don't remember which commissioner at this point said it, regarding the funding mechanism, the way it's currently worded, it does seem like it's more of a mandate versus an incentive, and I think that to Sydney's point of how it was done in Queen Creek, it should be more of an incentive that we give to not only our incoming businesses or residential communities, but also our businesses who are looking to grow and expand. One of the things, just a couple of things that I would like to seek clarification on at least, is that in there was a clause about buildings just can't be pretty and that be defined as public art, but yet I would like to remind you that murals and paintings are also public art, and we have a terrific example of that, I think, most recently with TPG Accounting on the backside of their building facing Flatiron Park is a gorgeous mural. So would that be excluded from the public art definition? Because we have plenty of buildings that could provide that kind of opportunity across our community. Another thing that I also am seeking clarification on is the fact that the city owns the art after 2 years, but the business is required to maintain that. So if the city if that art is transferred to the city and the city owns that, what's to stop the city from just turning around and selling that art? And in turn, where does that money go? Does that go back into the arts fund to be reused again? Is that agreed upon in like that temporary art that you guys were talking about? The other piece there was in regards to a known artist or an established artist. To me, that blocks out a lot of our local artists in our communities as well, because, you know, just like with the Kachina, while we know Merrill Orr, that doesn't necessarily mean the world knows Merrill Orr. So are we talking that the artist has to be a Pablo Picasso in order to come in and put art up? Or could one of our local high school students put together a plan and therefore get funding to put art up? Why would we want to block our own local people who, the comment was made, well, somebody who might just go and paint their bathroom. Well, I don't know what their bathroom looks like. They might be a Pablo Picasso, and they might be able to paint a gorgeous mural or create a gorgeous piece of artwork. So I would very much like to see that piece of the that piece of the language stricken, because it does go against moving locally. And then the other piece to this as well is, from my understanding in this, if a new business comes in, they're now required to go to the Arts Commission, the Planning and Zoning Commission, and City Council if they don't want to just fork over a sum of money. If I want to open up a discount tire, I don't, but if I did, and I now have to put art into the community, I have the option of forking over $10,000 of cash or forking over a $10,000 piece of art. That's on private property. So how are we now dictating what goes on private property in our community when that comes in? And we're adding bureaucracy to this, because instead of 2 commissions or even 1 commission, they now have to go through 3 to get approval on that. So keep that in mind for clarification's sake, because I do think that some of this language does need to be changed or looked at more heavily. But I do think this is a wonderful first step, and I look forward to seeing the continued variations of this. Thank you.
Thank you. I have to agree with the comment about artists, because some of us paint beautiful artwork in our house, but the art world doesn't know a thing about me, So, yeah, people can be artists, but how do we determine it? Come on down, Mo.
This is Mahmood Mayuddin, 2304 North Cortez Road, Apache Junction, Arizona. Display art is a wonderful thing. A lot of tourists, a lot of those people comes in. We created the Western town. A lot of people come take a picture. They have weddings over there and all that stuff. That's create a lot of activities, but it's mandating 1%. If somebody gonna come and wanna start a new business on his private property, and we are charging, if the cost him $100,000 or $200,000, people don't have money. People use banks. Okay, 10% down, taking the money from the bank, then they're gonna have to pay to the artist. Artist is gonna create it. Tomorrow, those artists is gonna put their signs on who created this, the artist. Artist is gonna sell those art for $100,000. Why don't we collect the sales tax from those art people to creating it or installing it? Small businesses can't afford it. If you guys are gonna go for the big business, millions of dollars, or shopping centers, or the entrance of the big development, that's more favorable. But the small business owner, they have a small place over there where they're gonna put the art and the people walking in. If you have a private house, or do you have walls over there, and you're gonna think about you living in a community where the condominiums are, the houses are 20 or 30 houses, and you're gonna allow the people walk in, look at the arts in the afternoon, in nighttime, the people wandering around, that's a privacy. And in new business open up, they wanna put the art inside, the people walking in just looking at the art, they wanna sell the product. These are all the pros and cons that you guys have to figure out what is the best for the community, what's the best for a business. And you guys are gonna generating the money off the sales tax. Those artists, they're gonna put the art in. If they sell, they need to be pay for it. 1% the business owner is gonna pay for the permit fees. If it's $200,000, they're gonna pay that one. Then they're gonna pay the artist to create the art over there also. It just have to think about it. Big shopping center, malls, big community, they're gonna display the art, understandable, but it's not beneficial for the small business or mom-pops and all those. Or we're getting that direction, city of Apache Junction, more pushing out the mom-pops, bringing the more chains and all those people, the franchise, they're bringing it in to look more better. But just to think about it, small business, they're carrying the United States. Over 70%. Small business paying the more taxes and all that stuff, and they're carrying the United States on the shoulder. If we're pushing them out, creating more problems, more cost to them, those people's not gonna come. We need to give them some kind of incentive to come over here to generate more money for the town, more tax dollars. If costing is up front, people is not gonna come over here in this town. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments? Anybody wanna?
Madam Chair, we're not necessarily voting, because this has already been
No.
approved by city council that they want to do this. We're just trying to figure out the mechanism, so,
But
I
any
mean, what do we control here, other than language, right?
the language?
Yeah, I mean, the council may ultimately decide not to do it, but they
That's
have
not our
given,
decision.
they've given direction to staff to go create
Madam
chapter
Chair.
2, and that chapter 2 gets created. They can adopt it or not adopt it. Same
Madam
thing for
Chair.
this. You're just making a,
This is still public hearing.
Oh, you're right. I'm
This is not
sorry.
discussion.
I'm sorry. I didn't close the public hearing. Is there anybody else in the public who would like to make any comments? Hearing none, I will close the public hearing, and now it's open for discussion. Sorry.
you're making a recommendation to adopt, to not adopt, to, we'll give you an ordinance that I'm trying to get input on, and you'll decide, you'll vote on whether you want to recommend approval, denial, or recommend more changes. So at this point, the council has directed staff to go draft these ordinances. This part of the code comes through this board because it's part of the zoning code, so it goes through this commission first before it goes to the council.
So we need to go through this and read it.
Yeah, we'll
And
get
make
you
any
another,
comments
we'll get you
or-
another draft. I did want to point out, in the section on conveyance of art, I can make it more clear. The city will maintain this after it would accept the art. So say a developer puts in the art, they have to maintain it for 2 years, and then decide to convey it to the city. The city would be maintaining it. We're not gonna, you give us the art, but yet you have to maintain it. That's not how it's set up. It's not set up that you have to go at all to the P&Z Commission. So there are not 3 boards. There's 2 if the council decides there's 2. The idea is you are doing a development, and you come up with the plan, you submit it to staff, we go through it, we send it on to the Arts Commission, they deal with it. What hasn't been decided is whether the council would then approve of the Arts Commission's decision. So again, that's 2, but there's nothing in here that has any of this art coming to you. The zoning code creates the mechanism, but every single piece of art does not come here. Now, it may show up on a landscape plan, or it may show up, that way, but this commission isn't, once they submit the arts plan, if you will, if they decide to go forward, it goes to the Arts Commission. What hasn't been decided by the council yet is whether the council gets veto, if you will, or final say over that piece of art.
Basically, then what we're doing is, we're just gonna be creating this document.
This mechanism.
And recommend it for approval, let's say, to city council. Once that's done, we're out of the picture.
Yes.
Larry, what's our time
Primarily.
frame for this?
Well, the council is trying to, again, if it all goes forward, the creation of the commission through Chapter 2 is possibly going to the September 17th council meeting. Then they, just as you do, I think that process is in October perhaps, where they seat commission members. Maybe some of you 3 commissions already is not enough, and you want to now sit on the Arts Commission. So they'll go through that appointment process, and then the idea would be after the first of the year probably is when they would
When are you
have their
gonna
first meeting.
put this on an agenda again for us,
That's my question.
for our?
Could
any
be the
comments?
13th, although I'm not going to be here on the I'm getting my hip replaced, so I won't be here on the 13th. That's the day I'll be medicated. Maybe you'll need medication after.
I'll be here medicated too.
Maybe you'll need,
I
after
plan
reading
on
this,
being here.
after reading this a few more times, maybe you'll need some. So Heather Patel, who's in our department, she's kind of worked on the Chapter 2 thing. She might come, or we can push it back probably 2 weeks. I think if it would be, you have a calendar, Joel, if there's a meeting, I don't think there's a meeting well, there is a second meeting in August. We could shoot for that. But I can get you a better cleaned up version anytime, this week, next week. So then it's better formatted. I won't have all the answers, and we'll see what we can do in terms of getting you some other ordinances you can look at.
So you're talking like, maybe this would be on the agenda for August 27th?
27th is the next one after
Right.
that.
That would give you time to kind of read it
That
in
gives
more
us a month.
detail. Yeah, we would still have time in September to adopt it at our, that would be I think about September 10th, I believe.
It's the
Is it
10th.
Tuesday?
It'd be the 10th.
Yeah, so we'd still have time. Again, the council, whether it gets to them on the 17th, that's our hope, is to get it. So we still have at least one or two more iterations here.
But there's nothing dire, like if they don't pick an arts commission in October, nothing's gonna die or happen drastic.
I hope nothing dies or nobody dies.
I mean,
But that's the council said, go do this. That's our traditional time for, seeking members for commissions. So I think for efficiency's sake, I think they want to try to do it all
well, I understand that.
simultaneously. How they reach out, I guess we'll know more on the 17th. If they've already seen one early draft of that chapter 2. They've already talked about the makeup of the commission and how many artists, or whether you're a city resident or not. They've talked about some of that already. So it's not like they haven't seen it for the first time either. So, yeah, I mean, if it's not the end of the world if the commission doesn't meet till March. I mean, we don't have one now. We have never had one, but that's the kind of schedule we're trying to work towards.
I mean, it's like, we've gone 10 years trying to develop one, or talked about it, and now all of a sudden it's like, hurry up, get it done. Okay. Anything
Okay.
else?
No, ma'am, that's it for now.
Okay, and we'll move on to new business, because there is no old business, I take it. And we have 2 items. The first is the presentation, discussion, and direction to staff on proposed request for a city-initiated rezoning of 978 East Roosevelt Street from RSGR to RS20.
Madam, I want to introduce Nick Leftwich. He's a new intern.
Nick?
Nick? Yep. So he's going to present, this is some city property that we acquired after we did some major cleanup. This was kind of a 2.5 acre parcel off of Cactus and Roosevelt that had a lot of illegal activity over there. The owners decided to give it to the city, and then we did all the cleanup, and now we're kind of moving into the next phase of, doing something with this property rather than have it sit there. So Nick is going to, I'm going to cue him up here. So this is, we've done this recently in terms of, I'm going to do full screen again. Getting your permission to move forward with the rezoning.
Thank you, Director Kirsch. So, as he said, we are focusing on the property found at 978 East Roosevelt Street. It's a 2.6 acre parcel of land, and as he said, it's a city-owned parcel. It had some history with some code compliance issues and a lot of neighborhood complaints. The former owners actually live in Germany, and it came to the point where there was so much going on that they donated the land over to the city because they did not want to have to deal with any of the local problems. And given that, it is the lot size is, again, almost 2.5 acres, and it is currently zoned for the general rural, low-density, single-family detached residential zone, the RSGR, with a minimum lot size of 1.25 acres. The staff proposes a change to the RS20 zoning, which is medium-density, single-family detached residential. That has a minimum lot size of, let's see.
20,000.
20,000 feet, thank you. The plan is, given that the city was gifted this land, that this site gets rezoned to allow for smaller parcel sizes so that it may be, in the future, divided into smaller lots. The plan is 3. And then it could be resold and redeveloped for single-family detached housing in line with the rest of the neighborhood. As you can see by the zoning, the neighborhood is currently split between RM2 and RSGR, which is the current site. But given the large parcel size, staff believes that the best direction is to create smaller parcels and then sell those off to the public, or to the people, I suppose. Given that, planning staff seeks the commission's direction to proceed with the city-initiated rezoning request of 978 East Roosevelt Street from general rural low-density single-family detached residential to medium-density single-family detached residential zoning. Do you have any questions?
Madam Chair?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah,
Oh.
why sell it?
Yeah, yeah.
I believe
Let him go first.
it's because they believe the most efficient use of land would be to split it into smaller lots as opposed to the large 2.36 acre lot that's currently there.
What is the average size around this lot? It looks like it's
They're all
bigger than 20,000.
It's horse
Probably
property.
RSGR. probably.
Yeah. Well, the idea actually, if we split it into three, if we split it into any more than four, it triggers a different process, I believe, subdivision process. And so that's why three was picked. Each of the lots would have approximately 34,000 square feet. So they'd still be a fairly large lot size, bigger than the next lowest, or sorry, I guess I'll step back. RS20 is the next largest zoning from RSGR. And with a 20,000 minimum, the 34,000 square foot lot is approximately 1.5 times the minimum lot size. So it'll still be a fairly large lot size to develop. I don't know if the aerial properly shows how the sizes are, but the staff believes that that would make efficient use of the land.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I went out there and looked at the property, and if it's divided equally in thirds, north to south, that western third, a lot of it's wash. And I don't know, to me, I know I wouldn't buy it, maybe the middle third or the eastern third, but that other third, I don't know, it would take some, with setbacks and everything for putting something on there, I think that would potentially present some problems. I like the idea of subdividing it into three, but I don't know if that's necessarily the best, because I don't know if that western lot would sell. The other issue I have is it abuts right up to the backside of Sky's bar, and when they have their concerts, performances, et cetera, I don't know if there's any potential for issues there, being that close to, that's the only commercial in that area, or commercial building in that area.
Right.
So those are my concerns.
If I could,
I was gonna say, any input on, as far as the breakdown of the?
well, usually, I mean, it is about management of the bar. So there has been concerns in the past. There is a new owner of the bar, and they bought the land. In the past, I think the previous owner had different operators, would operate, let somebody else come in, and then I think more recently they sold it. So now it's, I want to say Deborah from Lucky Strikes is now Lucky Skies. So other neighbors have at least the gentleman to the east has been to the city council many times on the history of this property and what shape it was in. It will meet the setbacks. So if we do create three lots, the RS20 setbacks will allow essentially, you know, the lot furthest to the east, they could move their house in the back. I don't know why they would, maybe because of Sky, so they could have a buffer. The one in the middle is no problem. There is room in the front here to put a house. And then their backyard, not the best lot, it probably would be the cheapest lot of the three, because of the wash that flows through there. But we did just do some noodling that you could fit 3 houses on the lot. So to the north, again, you have a mobile home park. The area to the east, well, I don't have Google Earth up now, but to the east, it's zoned RM2, which is, I want to say 22 units an acre. So the density is super high to the east, 22 units an acre. On the corner of Cactus and just a little bit north there, there's a property that has 7 units on it, I think in maybe 3 buildings, something like that. That's zoned multiple family. So I think what happened back in the day is the family owned this 5 acres. They carved out maybe this lot here. The parents, I believed, here from Germany lived here. They had the daughter owning this, and then again, they said, hey, we'll give it to you if you get rid of the issues going on. So we spent $20,000 in here on acquisition, demolition, taking the house to the landfill. We had prisoners from Florence go in there. We had 6 dumpsters involved, 1 for plastic, 2 for plastic recycling, 2 for metal recycling, and I think 4 other dumpsters. There was umpteen cars and boats and RVs and, you know, a big mess. They had a hole here. They were burying garbage. I mean, it was a problem for a decade. So I think the neighbors are happy that it's cleaned up. We're hoping that they can live with 3 houses here again, 30,000 square foot lots roughly. So and we're trying to recoup that 20,000. So yes, we could sell this 2.5 right now under the current zoning. Then someone else would probably come in and try a rezoning and split it into 3 lots. And so we think there's value added to go do the 3-lot division and the rezoning. Septic, I think, works. Water, there is water. Some of these properties to the east have Arizona water. And again, along properties along Royal Palm. But we're looking at some costs to bring water in. We would work with our water district. Perhaps they would install it. We basically turn it over to Arizona Water. So we're trying to, we think a lot with a public water supply, a private company, whatever is going to have a higher value. Problem is those properties on the south side of Roosevelt, they can just hook up to it. So we'll pay for the pipe. They get to hook up to it. They become Arizona Water customers. But we have to recoup that cost over 3 lots. So those are some of the finances. Even if we just did the rezoning and the subdivision, then let somebody else come in and figure water and septic.
Larry, my thought on this is kind of like a little bit of just the opposite of what you're saying. Because when I was reading this, I'm thinking, we don't have that many large lots anymore. And would that not be a selling point to someone who maybe wants just 1 large lot? Then they would have to do just the opposite. They'd have to come back to you to request that 3 lots be rezoned back into just 1 lot. So my question boils down to is, have you guys talked to any real estate people to ask them what might be the most beneficial for putting this up for sale? Should I do this to sell it, or should I do this to sell it?
Well, we probably processed, I don't know, 13 lot splits. So if we sold this 2.5 acres, I can guarantee you whoever buy it, Clayton Homes would be here tomorrow, they'd buy it, they'd split it into 2 lots. Mm-hmm. So I think that's the trend we're seeing is they go find these 5 acres, they create a 2.5, they create 2 1/4 acres. Clayton Homes puts 2 manufactured homes on the 2 1/4 lots. They have to sell the third 2.5 acre because you can't create that 4th lot, as Nick was saying. They turn around, Clayton Homes sell to somebody. The next day, somebody's in with a lot split, creating an 1.25 acres. So I don't think there's really a demand. There may be somebody out there that wants a 2.5 acre, but I would say there's like a better than 90% chance whoever we sold it to would come in and do a lot split right away. So the option would be, okay, leave the zoning the same, let's just go create 2 1/4 lots. And then we sell them at, I don't know what they're going for now, $60,000 to $80,000 for an 1.25 acres. I don't really know off the top of my head, but there's no water and you got to do a septic. The water is an issue. It comes in off of easement over here, which Arizona Water basically said, we will not let you put houses here off this easement that was never really recorded. And that was an issue. Mr. Bowrider owns this house, he had water. They were somehow, because these families were related, they were getting water from the parents' lot, if you will. They got out of it, and then they would, the previous occupiers, we'll call them that, would climb the fence, go and try to steal water from Mr. Bowrider. So these lots don't have water. Arizona Water said the only way we can really serve this is off of Roosevelt. That's why we're looking at that. And if you're gonna bring in, either they have to drill a couple private wells, which that's iffy in today's day and age, but the higher value would be, proposition in my mind, would be to rezone it, create 3 lots, then we might be able to afford selling 3 lots that have, a potable water supply.
More sellable benefit, yeah.
Yeah. So again, I think other parts of the city, yeah, we have acre and a quarter lots that, just one came in today to the counter that, a land division to create 2 acre and a quarter lots.
We got a
So.
question.
Okay.
As a resident, or let's say I bought this property and I wanted to subdivide it, I'd have to bring with a plan on how I wanted to put houses on all this and everything, correct?
Ultimately, if you were gonna build a house, you mean, or just to?
To buy it and get it subdivided smaller, I'd have to present a plan on how I'd lay out everything, correct?
You come in with a sketch, we would look at it. The only thing someone could come in here and build a little cul-de-sac and try to do something else.
So why doesn't the city have to have a straightforward plan on that? We want to put 3 houses, this is how we plan on subdividing it. We don't have all that information.
Well, been doing this a while, and I think you can get 3 lots on there, and that 3 houses, and that's it, because of that wash. But we did look at whether the 3rd lot would meet the setback. The first 2 are no problem, it's the 3rd lot that we don't know where it meets the setback.
Then my other question is, a lot of these are acre and a quarter lots around here, trying to preserve that kind of area openness. What about doing like an acre and a quarter and 1.11? That way you still have 2 more well, you have one definitely conforming to the surrounding area, and then one that's almost conforming, it's only 0.14 off from the other size. And that would create.
Well, only one would end
up.
up with horse privileges, so,
Right.
because it's an acre
But
and
then
a
you're
quarter.
turning 3 that wouldn't have horse privileges at all. At least this way we maintain 1. Or we leave it as it is and it has horse privileges and whoever buys it can determine.
Those are your
what they want
options.
to.
We're here for your recommendation. Our staff recommendation is to create the 3 lots. If you think you want to leave it at 2.5, we'll go work on something else. If you want to go, create 2, split it down the middle, we'll talk to the city manager and say, we have money in the budget right now to, either way, to do it, split it in half, or to
Well,
make it
half
3
would
lots.
Makes sense, because then you're losing horse privileges on both.
Well, I mean, you know what I'm saying. Yeah, you gotta create one has horse privileges. So, that's why you get the big bucks. We're just here with a staff recommendation, and then you tell us what you're inclined to do.
Does this, there's an old adage that you never sell property. The city was given this, okay? Why not just hold it and see
I think
what
the
happens?
idea too is we do have a community, so if the city sold this, the money would go in the general fund.
Yeah,
We also have a community development corporation that we're trying to get off the ground to do neighborhood revitalization. So this was neighborhood revitalization, just cleaning out the mess that was there. That was neighborhood revitalization. But the idea is if we sold these 3 lots, we need to try to recoup our 20. We can recoup our 20 very easily just by selling it as is. No fuss, no muss, we're done. And then we'll see what the value is. We did talk, Councilmember Evans, she is a realtor.
yeah.
This was like a year or 2 ago, so I don't really know what the values are, but that was an earlier question, have we talked to a realtor? So there is a market for 2.5 acres, there's market for acre and a quarter lots. Whatever we do, the direction I've seen so far is for us that we should dispose of the property. It's probably not gonna, what would be the public use here other than a city park or something here? Or just hang on to it and then sell it 10 years from now when land is more valuable? I mean, yes, we could do that. But I think the idea is get 3 houses built, get some revenue, kind of recoup our loss, if you will, and then whatever the proceeds are, have that go into the Community Development Corporation so they can go and start cleaning up another lot.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Larry, is there a strict timeline that we're up against? Or
No.
is this,
Well, I mean, we didn't have money in the last year's budget to do the land division. I mean, the rezoning comes out of the city clerk's budget just for the advertising. So the cost really is to do the land division. And I'm guessing for the survey, I think I was quoted, it was about $4,000 or $5,000 to do the 3-lot land division off the top of my head. So the city manager put it in this year's budget, so we're kind of moving forward with it.
okay, so it is in the budget for right now, because I'm
To
just wondering.
do the survey work, yes.
To do the survey work. Is there an advantage or disadvantage to keeping it as is for, say, 2 years? I'm just throwing a random number
Yeah,
out.
no, we've had it for, I want to say,
3 years, according
three
to
and a
the-
half now, maybe. So the last 2 years, there hasn't been a lot.
But property values have gone up and anticipate going up again, because Google's just putting in that new facility in Mesa, which is gonna make us more of a bedroom community. Property values are gonna go up even more.
Yeah, there's always a question, should we sell it now, 3 years, 5 years? Is it going to continue to go up? They did go up. There was a time when they went down. Is that going to happen again in the future? Hopefully not. Maybe not as likely as it did in 2008 or 9, but I think the idea is we have this piece of property. Yes, we could hang on to it. Yes, it would be worth more if we hung on to it, but I think it's appreciated the last couple of years already. So now it's like, do you want it to appreciate more, or do you want to create the 3 lots and then have because that's what developers do, right? They go in, they find a piece of property like this, they go through a rezoning, and they create the 3 lots, and then they sell the 3 lots. That's what they do every day. So I'm saying, why don't we do that and then sell the 3 lots? And
Larry,
Would there be any way to put it up for sale, just the whole thing, and ask if somebody says they want to divide it in just half, then we could just do it in half and they could buy it?
is there a way to do that? Yeah,
Yeah.
there is.
I mean, why do something without knowing what somebody really wants to do with it?
Well, it would be kind of, we put it out there for sale, and then we say, well, you're not going to pay us much. So people always want to bargain from the city. They always think we're going to undervalue it, right? So we don't have a formal process that I know of, but I suggest like sealed bids or something, so that, typically what happens is a neighbor comes and says, hey, I'll buy that, will you sell it? So I think to make it fair to everybody, anybody ought to be able to come in and advertise it in the paper several times wherever in the market, and then open it up for bids, and people can bid on it, and we could have a minimum bid, and then sell it. So again, you can sell it as is, where is, or you can sell it, we can do a division and create 2 lots, or we could do 3 lots. Those are all on the table.
Larry, did I hear you say that this money to clean up this particular parcels was taken from the revitalization? No?
No, these just came out of our various budgets, basically, like our budget last year or 2 years ago, we just absorbed it in our departmental budget. Bryant said, get that to the landfill. We had money in our budget that was maybe earmarked for something else. We weren't going to spend it. It cost $9,000 to take that to the landfill.
Do you get that
I
money
believe.
back into your budget?
No, it's gone.
Okay.
Yeah.
So again, I'm just saying the city, not my budget, anybody, the city spent $20,000 to,
Clean it
and
up.
that doesn't include the time of having things translated into German and, process servers, all that kind of stuff. Doing title reports, it cost us roughly $20,000 to buy it. So we would like to get that money recuperated. That's our cost. So I think we can easily do that. If we sell it as is, we'll certainly get that 3, 4, 5 times that. That would be the simple thing to do, is just put it out as is.
Madam Chair?
Yeah.
Larry, how long ago did that cleanup occur?
I would say 3 years ago, probably 2.5, 3 years ago.
Okay, so since that time...
It was a 10-year code case. There was a code case going on there for at least 10 years.
Okay.
So everybody who had affiliation with that was in prison, getting out of prison, in jail, deceased, living there, collecting rent when they weren't even the owner. I mean, it was a mess. There were squatters, it was a complete mess.
That's well, I guess my question is, so, since that time, is the PD more involved in like monitoring that to make certain we all of a sudden don't have another reintroduction of?
We have,
Seriously?
we have many other properties that we spend our time on. We're just not spending it on this now because it's gated, it's locked, all that.
Oh, so, okay, so it's,
We have plenty of other similar properties in the city that we're dealing with.
that are city-owned?
No, no, no,
Oh,
no.
okay.
Just code cases in general that
Okay.
kind of have the same thing going on that went on there.
Okay.
You know, you find somehow, there's no owner. The owner died. Next thing you know, there's 8 RVs over there and all sorts of stuff's going on. I'm sure Commissioner Kreidler could attest to that in his previous life in the city. So again, I mean, we're suggesting this is what happens. If you don't have, if you want to refer it till the next meeting or the meeting after, you're certainly entitled to do that. If you think you want the council to decide whether we should initiate, ultimately this is going to go to the council. So the council can decide to initiate the rezoning. We can basically do the same thing, get a city-initiated rezoning. We would go to the council and say, council, do you want to rezone this? So ultimately, if you say, yes, let's go ahead and rezone it to RS20, we come back, it's going to take 3.5 months to go through the rezoning, notify all the surrounding property owners. Council gets to vote on it anyway. Another option is just say, we're going to take a pass. Why don't you guys just, staff, take this to council, get their 2 cents.
So none of the residents have been notified of any potential plans. We haven't received any input from the public, from any of the neighbors, anybody.
That
from
process starts if you give us direction to staff. We would have a neighborhood meeting, just like Dutch Bros. Whether it's over at Skies or not, I don't know, but we would have a neighborhood meeting, let them know what's going on, here's the proposal. They may read it in the paper because these meetings are televised, and that's how reporters do their work now. They just watch video and report on the news. So they may know that way, but yeah, we would have a neighborhood meeting. We notify everybody within 300 feet of the rezoning. So it's like any other rezoning after we get direction here. So we're coming back, actually on the 13th, you gave us direction a couple months ago to do some rezoning up off of Ironwood and Smoke Tree. So we're bringing those 4 lots. It's actually the opposite though. We're going, and there's 4 houses there, but they're all 1.25 acres, and I think it's going from B1 to RSGR. That was a city-initiated rezoning. This was different because we happen to be the owner.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I think it might be a good idea if we kind of tabled it for tonight and maybe have staff give us a couple of different options to look at, since there seems to be no consensus amongst anybody that's spoken so far. I don't mind the rezoning. I'm just not sure if the 3 is the right, or if 2 or 1. But rezoning, I don't have an issue with. I think it's probably a good idea. It's just a matter of how is it going to be divided and sold. So Larry, how much work is it to give us a couple of different options as far as, selling it as is, dividing it up into 2 or 3?
I don't know if are you looking at it from a fiscal standpoint? Like, is it more
Yeah,
likely
I am.
to?
What's the benefit? What's the greatest benefit to the city? And I think rezoning definitely is going to be the city's benefit. It's just a matter of where's the greatest dollar amount to benefit the city going to be, from as is, from dividing it into 2, dividing it into 3. We already know we don't want to go to dividing it into 4. So where's the greatest benefit?
Well, again, yeah, we could divide it a lot more than that, but we'd be going through a subdivision process, and be spending a lot more than that to do that, so.
Is that something that could be done
We
for the
can
next
come back. I
meeting, and
guess
then
we would also just do a little sketch to show you that if we do divide into 3, we can get 3 houses on there.
Might be a good idea even to put you know, possible placement, just so we can, because when I was out there, I'm looking at the property. I didn't actually go over the fence or anything, but I was just eyeballing it, and I'm thinking, it's gonna be kind of tight on that western portion if it's divided north and south.
This is a weird area. I'm trying to remember. I don't even know if there's these FPEs, federal patented easements on. You can see here from this diagram that it looks like the current Roosevelt is all on this, but I gotta go back and
Yeah.
check. There's some areas that were, when these were all federal lands, some of them had federal patented easements around like the 20 acres, some of them had 10, some were kind of, so access-wise, I gotta go back and
Roosevelt
look at
doesn't go
that.
through.
Roosevelt currently does not go through, but certainly there would be easements there to put the water line through.
Right.
So
But
to
that,
access this, this.
access to this would be back to the east to Cactus.
Well, this one here, it is from this road up here on the north end. That's how you'd access this section.
Should be, what, Junction?
I
Yeah.
don't know what, and then these other two would be off of Roosevelt, right?
No, this property is 100% access off of Roosevelt.
Yeah, access only off of Roosevelt. It's a dirt road coming off of Cactus.
Correct.
But how do you get to over here if off of Roosevelt?
see
if
where
there's-
you're
There
pointing.
is, there is one gate about where the double O's are in Roosevelt. There's one gate providing access to the whole property right now as
Okay.
is.
Because it's one property right
Right.
now.
Right.
You can see
Yeah,
there was,
but if it's divided up, how do you get over here? If somebody puts a fence in, how do you get over to this left?
Roosevelt
there would be
still-
three driveways on this property, one for each property. There's no culverts needed. It's pretty, the road before you get here is, kind of has a big dip in it because there's another wash to the east. But you can see here, there was another house there at one time. I think there was a manufactured home there. And most recently, the manufactured home was in the back here because there was a SRP pole, and then that's kind of where they got their water.
Larry, would it be a total pain for you guys to ask 3 different realtors in the area what they would suggest and what they think it would be the best value to sell it however way? I mean, I know nothing about real estate.
Of course, but I think it makes sense to do that. You asked me if it was a pain, I was just gonna say.
Well,
No, but I think we can talk to local realtors and get their opinion, give them 3 scenarios and say, okay,
say you got this lot, if you owned it, how would you sell it? How would you split it?
really, we
How
should
would-
rezone it to RM2. Why don't we just completely upzone it for 40 units an acre? But I don't think the neighbors would want
No,
that.
I know.
That would have the highest value. You still has to have a viable development there.
No, I
but
don't mean that, but I'm saying being real.
We'll give them the
that if you're-
3 scenarios and ask them which one has the highest return for the city.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I'll do that.
I think we're trying to get too deep into all this.
Yeah.
I think
We agree with that.
the city isn't a developer. I don't think the city should be a developer. I think they're getting on 2 sides of an issue. They're there to enforce rules and everything.
I agree.
Personally, I think the city should sell the lot as is, let whoever buys it worry about rezoning, because we haven't had any input from any of the neighbors, what they're gonna feel. You know, 3 might sound great, but if every neighbor around here doesn't want that, you know, we shouldn't go against the wishes, especially the way it's zoned right now. And I think we got too many ifs that we're trying to, we're not fortune tellers. So I think for simplicity and ease of everything, I think the city should just sell it as is and let whoever buys it worry about it, and we can address it when they come up for a rezoning. And then we can ask all these hard questions and deal with it in a proper sequence.
Almost makes sense.
I try,
Because, I don't know anything about real estate.
Well, we're not gonna know what the neighbors think
until we go through a whole process.
until we go through the process.
So
If we just
as
sell
the
it as
city, are we
is,
gonna start doing it and spending more money and time on it, or?
if we don't, if we sell it as is, we'll never ask the neighbors. We'll never know what they
Right.
were okay with.
But whoever buys it, if they decide to rezone it, they will.
Well, again, that's, to me,
you know, at this point,
someone
should-
described to me rezoning one time, and it was basically, it's a cash machine. So when we rezone stuff here, we're immediately adding value to that prospective developer. So the votes you take here, when you rezone a piece of property, you're basically, that is like the cheapest thing you can do. A rezoning is, trying to remember our cost, $1,400. For $1,400, they may double, triple their value.
But is the city a developer? Is that the business we want the city to get into?
Yes. In my opinion, we may disagree, but we have this opportunity here.
Ask as a
Yeah,
question.
we have this opportunity here, and it's not like we're flipping it. We've had this now, and we had to go through a lot of rigmarole to acquire the property and to turn around and sell it. So I'm saying the highest and best return for the city is to do this.
But we still make a profit.
Either way, we make a profit. So do we, as a government, should we like leave a whole bunch of money on the table because we could have, instead of selling it for 100, we could have sold it for 150? Isn't that also a disservice to the taxpayer?
Yes and no, we gotta look at what position it puts us into. You know, because we're here to enforce rules. I mean, we shouldn't be trying to develop and figure out ways. And again, there's so many what ifs until we go through the whole process and we hear what all these residents and everybody else wants. You know, do we want to put that extra time, effort, money into it, or do we sell it, make a profit, and let the next developer do all them other steps, and that's how they make their money, going through that process?
Yeah. Well,
But essentially, what you're asking us to do tonight is to give you direction
Yeah.
relative to the rezoning of this, rezoning it from one
density
use
to another.
to another use. That's what you're asking us to do tonight.
Correct.
Yeah. So let's do that. Anybody else?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I guess my opinion is I think we have a development services division in this city for the purpose of really of looking at this. And I would take the position if they believe that doing this rezoning is the way to go, then we do it. Obviously, it's got to go back to city council. Ultimately, they have to make the call on this. I feel like we need to do something. I think just kicking the can down the road, I don't know if that's something that we should do. So I may be the only one, but I'm in favor of, I think I am in favor of moving forward and giving them direction to do this.
Okay.
And then everybody can decide how they want to.
This isn't a public hearing, so I will call for a motion. We've killed it enough.
Okay.
We've
Well-
stomped on that horse enough.
Okay, so I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission direct staff to initiate a rezoning of 978 East Roosevelt Street, parcel 101-18-0340, from general rural, low-density, single-family detached residential, RSGR, to medium single-family detached residential, RS-20.
We have a motion. Somebody give me a second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Chair Nesser,
Yes.
Commissioner Uli,
Yes,
Commissioner Hanchey,
No.
Vice Chair Heck,
Yes.
Commissioner Howard. Yes. Commissioner Kreidler,
Yes.
Commissioner McGraw.
Yes.
6-1, Madam Chair, in favor.
Okay. Okay, we have presentation, discussion of the proposed 2020 general
Nick,
plan.
thank you. Sorry to make you
Yes,
stand there
thank
for a
you,
while.
Nick.
Thanks, Nick.
That didn't go the way you thought, did it?
He didn't know he was going to be standing there all that long.
Commission, after months of hearing about the general plan, we're finally here. This past weekend, or perhaps today, you should have received a packet of a general plan draft. If you didn't bring it today, no worries. Staff has been working on this for a few months, and we're finally here to bring it to for your review. We're formally going to start reviewing the plan. Our next meeting, which is the 30th, I believe. Yeah, the 30th, and then we'll have a meeting on the 1st and the 8th. So really, tonight's meeting is just a brief overview of the plan, and then talking about scheduling. If you guys have the plan in front of you, we could just go briefly through it, so we become a little bit more familiar with it when we're here before you on the 30th. Really, the first page is really the acknowledgements of the city council, your commission, and of course, the city staff that worked on it. If you take a look at the table of contents, that's pretty much the depth of what we'll go through today. Part one is really the introduction and the community profile. It's really the intro. Part 1.1, the executive summary, kind of summarizes the goals of each chapter that is noted in the Part 2 plan elements. The community vision and mission statements are taken from the direction of the City Council, and then Section 3 of Part 1 goes a little bit more depth in terms of the profile of the community, what the demographics are, what we've heard from the community surveys that we took, and then we go to the community participation section of Part 1.4. Now that section in your draft is missing, and we won't have that drafted until we have presented that to the Planning Commission and the City Council, and then we will include that in the plan at that time. Part 2 notes the 12 chapters, really the meat of the plan, and like we've discussed in the past, we're talking about everything from the environmental planning element to parks and recreation, to downtown planning, to the circulation element, to a water element, to land use element. So we're talking about all of those in Part 2. Part 3 is really kind of the administrative section of the plan, how we amend the plan, how developers come in and request changes, and then the last part of that plan is how we track the implementation of the plan and those changes. In our upcoming meeting on the 30th, our plan is to present to you about 3 to 4 chapters at a time, and then receive your input. So before you tonight, you should have those notebooks. Feel free to put your plan in there. You should have red pens where you could take notes and make comments, and we will take note of that at the meetings on the 30th, the 1st, and the 8th, and then probably upcoming meetings after that.
Sydney, are we gonna just go right down 1 to 12 in order, or?
Commissioner McGraw, that is correct. So we'll start with Part 1, and we'll go through the executive summary and the community vision, and then if we have time, we'll go through the plan elements as well. So we'll try to go through it at a pretty decent pace. You'll probably have to do some really exciting reading at night. If you have trouble sleeping at night, this is the plan to read. But yeah, we will go one section at a time.
Okay. Well, Sydney, do you have a rough idea how much of this we would be looking at or reviewing on the 30th? How far
Sure.
we should be trying to?
Sure, we will definitely get through Part 1. That shouldn't take too long. And then I am hoping that we get through Part 2, plan element number 1, number 2, and possibly number 3.
And that's in a 2-hour period?
Correct,
Yes.
yes.
Okay.
And we'll go at your pace. I mean, if you're
Absolutely.
comfortable at that pace, fine. If not, The other thing I want to quickly point out too is once we're done with this, we have to make it look nice. So we're working with Matt McNulty in the, he does all our website and graphics and all that. So ultimately, we'll have a nice cover for it. We want to insert some photographs, so it's not just going to be all text. So we have some maps. They look better on a computer or color than they do here. So there's still a lot of work to do in terms of, creating basically a document that's published when you're all done. So the idea is once we finish here, you'll recommend adoption. We'll put it in a format, we'll have a public hearing, and then it would go to the council after you're done with it. So it might be like a 95 or 99% document rather than 100% as it gets to the council. So the idea was if we could, Matt was looking for the month of October, I think, to kind of finalize it, putting it in publishing software, and then take it to the council either maybe late November and December. So we're still hoping to adopt in second meeting in January.
All right.
So, thank you, Sydney.
Thank you, Commission.
Yep. Any questions, anybody? Okay. Information and reports? Anything?
No, ma'am.
Director's report.
I'm getting a new hip on the 13th, so I won't be here on the 13th. Let's see. There is a upcoming state planning conference in Oro Valley on September 11th to the 13th, I think. So the city itself does have a presentation on the agenda. We had an ASU student do a project on transitioning mobile home parks. So there is a workshop session on that, just so you know. And then we did submit, I think I told you before, we submitted to the State Planning Association for the active transportation plan, so we haven't heard yet, but hopefully we'd be at the awards luncheon. So that's all I have, and then I think all we need to do is kind of fix these dates. The idea then, our next regularly scheduled meeting is on the 13th, and then at that time you can add more dates for the general plan, which again, I think we've agreed they're going to be Thursdays. So we'll see how far we get. Well, I don't think we'll put anything on the 13th other than regular agenda items. And then if you think you want to meet that Thursday, you'd make a motion to add some more Thursdays.
Okay. Well, then who would like to select? Ouch, pinch myself. Move on to the selection of meeting dates, times, location, and purpose.
Madam Chair?
Yeah.
I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission hold 3 special meetings on July 30th, August 1st, and August 8th, 2019, at 7 p.m., and a regular meeting on August 13th, 2019. All meetings will be at 7 p.m. and be held in the City Council chambers located at 300 East Superstition Boulevard.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner McGraw,
Yes.
Chair Nesser,
Yes.
Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Commissioner Hanshi,
Yes.
Vice Chair Heck,
Yes?
Commissioner Howard,
Yes.
Commissioner Kreidler.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. All in favor.